There comes a moment in life when the heart becomes tired before the body does. You've tried explaining your pain. You've tried being patient. You've tried staying strong, even when nothing seems to move. And then there comes a quiet sentence, not loud, not dramatic, just heavy with meaning. HasbiAllahu, not said in comfort, but said when your chest feels tight, when answers are delayed, and when you realize that holding everything together alone is no longer possible. This is not a phrase for the tongue. It is a moment where control ends and trust begins. And when HasbiAllahu is said truthfully, something inside you changes, not outside first, but deep within. Before we continue, pause for a second. From where are you watching this right now? And what time is it in your city or country? At this moment, wherever you are, this reminder has found you exactly when it needed to. The very first change that happens when someone truly says HasbiAllahu is not something the world can see. Nothing outside immediately shifts. The problem may still exist. The door may still feel closed. The answer may still be delayed. But inside, something begins to loosen. Before this moment, the heart is busy trying to manage everything. It replays conversations. It imagines outcomes. That prepares itself for disappointment before disappointment even arrives. This is the silent exhaustion many people live with, not because life is heavy, but because they are trying to carry what was never meant to be carried alone. When HasbiAllahu is said truthfully, the heart finally admits something honest. I have reached the end of my strength. This is not failure. This is awareness. Because control is not the same as responsibility, and most anxiety is born when a person confuses the two. Responsibility says, I will do my part. Control says, I must guarantee the result. HasbiAllahu gently ends that illusion. It does not cancel effort. It releases the heart from demanding certainty. The person still works. They still plan. They still take steps. But the desperation disappears. The chest feels lighter. Not because the load vanished, but because the heart is no longer pretending it can hold the future in its hands. This is the first real rest a person experiences in faith. Not sleep, not distraction, but inner permission to stop fighting the unseen. And once control loosens, something subtle happens. The mind stops racing ahead of life. The body stops bracing for impact. The heart stops preparing for pain that may never come. This is where peace quietly enters, not loudly, not suddenly, but steadily. And from this moment onward, HasbiAllahu stops being words. It becomes a position that says, I will stand where I am needed, and I will leave the outcome where it belongs. After control begins to loosen, something else is exposed. Fear, not the loud kind that screams, but the quiet kind that lives in the background of everyday life. The fear of losing what you love, the fear of never receiving what you hope for, the fear that the future might arrive heavier than you are ready to carry. Before HasbiAllahu becomes real, fear feels reasonable. It disguises itself as caution. It calls itself preparation. It pretends to be wisdom. But in truth, fear slowly becomes the voice that decides how much peace you are allowed to feel. It tells you when to relax and when to tense. It tells you when to hope and when to expect disappointment. It tells you to protect yourself, even from trust. This is why fear is so powerful, because it does not arrive as an enemy. It arrives as a protector. But the moment HasbiAllahu is said with honesty, fear hears something it has never heard before. I am no longer alone with this. Fear does not disappear immediately. It does not vanish in a dramatic moment. Instead, it hesitates. Because fear survives on one belief, that everything depends on you. HasbiAllahu quietly removes that belief. When the heart truly accepts that there is a higher authority managing what it cannot see, fear loses its position of command. It may still speak, but it no longer decides. You notice this change in subtle ways. Your thoughts no longer spiral as far into the future. Your body no longer reacts to every uncertainty as a threat. Your chest no longer tightens every time something feels unclear. You still care. You still feel concern. But panic no longer controls the rhythm of your inner world. This is an important distinction. Faith does not make you fearless. It makes fear obedient. Before HasbiAllahu, fear tells you what is possible. After HasbiAllahu, trust tells fear where its limits are. And something remarkable happens here. You begin to respond instead of react. Bad news does not immediately shatter you. Delays do not instantly convince you of loss. Silence does not automatically mean rejection. You start giving space for meanings you cannot yet see. This is where emotional maturity is born, because fear always demands immediate conclusions. Trust allows unfinished stories, and when trust enters deeply, fear begins to lose energy. Not because life becomes safe, but because the heart stops needing constant reassurance. You no longer ask, "What if everything goes wrong?" You begin asking, "What if this is being handled with a wisdom greater than my fear?" That question alone softens the soul, and in that softness peace begins to grow, not as a feeling that comes and goes, but as a foundation that remains even when fear visits. This is the second change HasbiAllahu brings. Fear no longer rules the heart. It simply passes through it. After fear begins to lose its throne, the heart faces a truth that is far more painful than fear itself. Dependence. Not the kind people speak about openly, but the quiet dependence hidden inside expectations. The need to be understood, the need to be chosen, the need for someone to show up, respond, approve, stay, or save. Before HasbiAllahu becomes real, the heart leans heavily on people, even when the tongue says it trusts Allah. It waits for messages, it rereads words. It measures its worth through attention, response, and presence. And when people disappoint, as people always do, the pain feels personal, deep, and destabilizing. This is because the heart was resting in the wrong place. HasbiAllahu does not make a person cold, it makes a person anchored. When HasbiAllahu is said truthfully, something inside the heart withdraws, not from love, but from need. You still care, you still connect, you still value relationships, but you stop placing your emotional survival in the hands of creation. This is one of the most difficult shifts in spiritual growth, because it feels like loss at first. The heart asks, if I stop expecting from people, will I become alone? But what actually happens is the opposite. You become free, free from waiting, free from silent disappointment, free from the constant inner negotiation of, if I give more, maybe I shall be valued. Before HasbiAllahu, rejection wounds deeply because it feels like a verdict. After HasbiAllahu, rejection hurts, but it no longer defines you. You realize something quietly powerful. People are not cruel for failing you. They are limited. And the moment you stop demanding infinity from finite beings, the heart begins to rest. You no longer chase explanations. You no longer beg for closure. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to be enough for someone who was never meant to carry your worth. This is where dignity returns to the soul. HasbiAllahu teaches the heart a sacred boundary. Love people, but do not hand them the keys to your peace. And when this boundary forms, relationships change. You speak more honestly. You walk away more calmly. You forgive more easily, not because they deserve it, but because your heart no longer needs their validation. Even loneliness changes its meaning here. Before, loneliness felt like abandonment. Now solitude feels like protection. You begin to feel accompanied even in silence, supported, even without reassurance, seen even without applause. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. Alignment of the heart with the one who never withdraws, never misunderstands, and never leaves without purpose. And when the heart finally rests there, it no longer collapses when people fail it. This is the third change HasbiAllahu brings. The heart stops begging creation because it has finally learned where sufficiency truly comes from. There is a particular pain that almost everyone carries quietly. Not loss, not fear, but delay. The kind of delay that stretches longer than expected. The kind that makes you question your worth, your timing, and sometimes even your prayers. Before HasbiAllahu becomes real, delays feel cruel. They feel personal. They feel like a door closing again and again, just as hope begins to rise. You start asking questions that slowly exhaust the soul. Why them and not me? Why now for others but not for me? Why does it seem like I am always almost there, but never fully? This is where impatience turns into self-blame, and self-blame turns into quiet despair. HasbiAllahu does not erase the waiting, but it changes the meaning of waiting. When HasbiAllahu settles into the heart, the delay is no longer interpreted as rejection. It is understood as placement. You begin to realize that not everything that arrives quickly arrives safely, and not everything that is delayed is being withheld. Some things are being protected from arriving too early. This is a difficult truth, because the ego prefers speed, but the soul prefers alignment. Before HasbiAllahu, the heart rushes ahead of its own capacity. It wants outcomes before readiness. It wants relief before understanding. After HasbiAllahu, the heart learns something quieter and wiser. That timing is not about deserving. It is about sustainability. You start seeing that certain doors, if opened earlier, would have broken you. Certain answers, if given sooner, would have confused you. Certain blessings, if rushed, would have distracted you from what mattered most. This realization softens the bitterness of waiting. You stop staring angrily at the clock of life. You stop comparing your chapter with someone else's page. Comparison fades because you understand something essential. What is written for you is not late. It is being prepared with precision. Even patience itself begins to feel different. Before, patience felt forced, like holding your breath underwater. After HasbiAllahu, patience feels intentional, like standing still because you trust the ground beneath you. You begin to wait without resentment. You begin to hope without desperation. You begin to pray without demanding timelines. And something subtle but powerful happens here. Your identity detaches from outcomes. You stop measuring your value by what has not yet arrived. You stop seeing delay as proof of failure. Instead, you begin to see delay as conversation. A conversation where the soul is being shaped, steadied, and strengthened before the next chapter opens. This is where bitterness dissolves, not because life finally moves faster, but because the heart learns to move with divine timing rather than against it. This is the fourth change HasbiAllahu brings. Delays stop feeling like punishment and begin to feel like purposeful silence, working quietly in your favor, even when you cannot yet see how. There is a moment in every life when pain stops asking for permission. It arrives quietly or suddenly through loss, disappointment, betrayal, sickness, exhaustion, or unanswered prayers. And the first question the heart asks is not spiritual. It is human. Why is this happening to me? Before HasbiAllahu becomes real, pain feels pointless. It feels like damage. It feels like something that should not exist if faith is present. This is why pain often creates guilt. People begin to question themselves. Did I do something wrong? Is this punishment? Is Allah displeased with me? These questions cut deeper than the pain itself, because pain without meaning does not just hurt, it empties a person. HasbiAllahu does not erase pain, but it changes pain-sip's role. When HasbiAllahu is said truthfully, the heart slowly stops demanding that pain disappear and starts asking a different question. What is this pain trying to teach me that ease never could? This is a dangerous question, because it requires honesty. Pain exposes what comfort hides. It reveals attachments you did not know owned you. It reveals fears you never confronted. It reveals how fragile your sense of security truly was. Before HasbiAllahu, pain feels like an enemy breaking your life apart. After HasbiAllahu, pain begins to feel like a force breaking illusions. And illusions are always painful to lose. You realize that some of the things you were begging to keep were the very things exhausting your soul. Some relationships were draining you slowly. Some ambitions were hollow. Some expectations were crushing your spirit. Pain removes what politeness could not. This is why growth often hurts, because transformation is not gentle to the ego. HasbiAllahu gives you the strength to stop fighting this process. You stop trying to escape pain prematurely. You stop numbing it. You stop pretending you are unaffected. Instead, you sit with it, not in despair, but in surrender. And something remarkable happens here. Pain stops screaming, not because it leaves, but because it is heard. Pain that is resisted becomes trauma. Pain that is accepted becomes wisdom. This is one of the most misunderstood spiritual truths. Allah does not always remove pain immediately, because sometimes pain is doing sacred work. It is slowing you down. It is softening arrogance. It is teaching you humility without humiliation. It is carving depth into your character. Before HasbiAllahu, pain isolates you. You feel misunderstood. You feel alone inside your suffering. After HasbiAllahu, pain becomes a place of intimacy. You begin to feel accompanied even while hurting. You realize that Allah is not waiting for you after the pain. He is present within it. This realization changes everything. You stop rushing healing. You stop forcing positivity. You stop pretending you are strong when you are actually wounded. You allow yourself to be held rather than fixed. And slowly, quietly, something inside you strengthens. Not the kind of strength that boasts, but the kind that survives. You begin to notice that pain no longer destroys your identity, it deepens it. You become more patient with others because you understand suffering. You become more gentle because harshness no longer feels powerful. You become more sincere because illusions have fallen away. This is where true maturity begins. Not when life becomes easy, but when hardship no longer makes you bitter. HasbiAllahu teaches the heart that pain is not proof of abandonment. It is often proof of refinement. Just as fire does not destroy gold but reveals it, pain does not destroy the soul that trusts. It reveals its true weight. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you look back at what once broke you and notice something shocking. You survived it. You were shaped by it. You were softened by it. And the pain that once felt unbearable has become the reason you are no longer shallow, careless, or easily shaken. This is the fifth change HasbiAllahu brings. Pain no longer ruins you, it remakes you. There is a stage in every spiritual journey that feels more uncomfortable than pain itself. It is not suffering. It is not loss. It is not knowing. Not knowing why something happened. Not knowing when something will change. Not knowing how a story will end. Before HasbiAllahu becomes real, the heart is restless in uncertainty. It demands explanations. It searches endlessly for clarity. It believes peace will only arrive once everything makes sense. This is why unanswered questions feel so heavy. The mind keeps circling the same thoughts. The heart keeps reopening the same wounds. The soul feels suspended, unable to move forward, unable to go back. People often think this restlessness is curiosity, but in truth, it is fear wearing the mask of logic. Fear of being unprepared. Fear of being misled. Fear of surrendering control without guarantees. HasbiAllahu does something very subtle here. It does not give answers. It gives permission. Permission to live without complete understanding. This is one of the hardest lessons of faith, because the ego wants closure, certainty, and reassurance. But the soul wants alignment. Before HasbiAllahu, you believe peace is at the end of explanation. After HasbiAllahu, you discover peace exists, even without explanation. This is not ignorance. This is maturity. You begin to realize that knowing everything is not a requirement for moving forward. That clarity is not always a gift. Sometimes it is a delay in disguise. Some answers, if given too early, would freeze you in place. Some explanations would distract you from growth. Some truths would overwhelm you before you are ready to carry them. HasbiAllahu teaches the heart to walk without seeing the entire road. And this is terrifying at first. Because the heart asks, what if I make the wrong choice? What if I misunderstand the signs? What if I fail because I didn't set no enough? But slowly, something inside relaxes. You begin to notice that life has always been uncertain. You were simply pretending otherwise. Certainty was never guaranteed. It was only assumed. When this illusion falls, a quiet freedom emerges. You stop interrogating the past. You stop demanding the future reveal itself. You stop punishing yourself for not knowing. Instead, you begin to trust movement over clarity. You take the next right step. Not because you see the end, but because it is the step in front of you. This is how real guidance works. Guidance is rarely loud. It rarely arrives as a full map. It arrives as just enough light to take one step without falling. HasbiAllah. You shifts your relationship with uncertainty. Before, uncertainty felt like danger. After, uncertainty feels like space. Space for growth. Space for change. Space for divine wisdom to unfold gradually rather than all at once. You stop demanding signs every moment. You stop reading into every delay. You stop exhausting yourself trying to decode every silence. You begin to live, not recklessly, but trustfully. This is where faith becomes lived, not studied. You realize that Allah never asks you to understand everything. He asks you to walk honestly with what you are given, and suddenly, the pressure to figure life out dissolves. You stop racing toward conclusions. You stop fearing wrong turns. You stop waiting for perfect clarity before acting. You accept something profound, that being guided does not mean being informed. It means being held. This acceptance brings a calm deeper than answers ever could. Because answers expire, but trust endures. You begin to feel lighter. Not because questions disappear, but because questions no longer control your peace. You allow mystery without panic. You allow silence without suspicion. You allow unfolding without force. This is where surrender matures, not as passive waiting, but as confident movement without obsession. And when this lesson settles, the heart gains a rare strength. The strength to live fully in the present, without being haunted by the past, without being paralyzed by the future. This is the sixth change HasbiAllahu brings. The need for answers loosens its grip, and in its place, a deep, steady trust takes root, one that does not depend on explanations to survive. There is a freedom people chase their entire lives without realizing what it truly is. They think freedom is ease. They think freedom is success. They think freedom is being loved, admired, secure, or finally understood. But none of those things last long enough to hold the soul. True freedom is not the absence of problems. It is the absence of inner captivity. Before HasbiAllahu becomes real, the heart is imprisoned by many invisible chains. The chain of outcomes, the chain of expectations, the chain of identity built on results, the chain of fear of loss, the chain of needing life to behave a certain way in order to feel okay. This is why even blessed people feel restless, because blessings alone do not free the heart. HasbiAllahu does. When HasbiAllahu settles fully into the soul, something fundamental changes. Life no longer owns you. Circumstances stop defining your worth. Success stops inflating you. Failure stops humiliating you. You begin to exist from a place deeper than events. This is rare freedom. You still care deeply. You still strive sincerely, but you are no longer enslaved to outcomes. Before HasbiAllahu, the heart says, if this happens, I will be at peace. If that doesn't yet happen, I will be broken. After HasbiAllah, the heart says, whatever happens, I will remain held. This is not emotional numbness. It is emotional sovereignty. You stop handing your inner state to circumstances you cannot control. People may praise you, and you remain grounded. People may leave you, and you remain whole. Life may rise, and you stay humble. Life may fall, and you stay standing. This is the dignity HasbiAllahu restores, a dignity that does not shout, a dignity that does not prove, a dignity that simply is. You no longer need life to validate your faith. You no longer need outcomes to justify your patience. You no longer need explanations to confirm your worth. You exist from trust, and trust does something extraordinary. It makes the heart unshakable, not rigid, not hard, but rooted. Rooted so deeply that storms no longer threaten its existence. They only pass through. This is where inner freedom becomes visible in subtle ways. You stop rushing conversations. You stop forcing connections. You stop chasing closure. You walk away without bitterness. You stay without fear. You speak without desperation. Your presence becomes calm. Not because life is calm, but because you are. This is the quiet authority of someone who has surrendered correctly. Not surrendered to life, but surrendered within life. You understand something now that once felt impossible to grasp, that nothing meant for you can miss you, and nothing not meant for you can stay. This realization dissolves envy. It dissolves regret. It dissolves panic. You stop measuring yourself against others. Their timing no longer threatens you. Their success no longer diminishes you. You are no longer late. You are no longer behind. You are no longer forgotten. You are exactly where you need to be. Not because it feels perfect, but because you are no longer fighting reality. This is freedom. And with this freedom comes a strange peace. A peace that does not depend on certainty. A peace that does not collapse under pressure. A peace that does not disappear when things go wrong. It stays, even when life is loud, even when the future is unclear, even when the heart is tired. This is the final change HasbiAllahu brings. You are no longer trying to survive life. You are living it, with trust instead of tension, with surrender instead of struggle, with presence instead of panic. HasbiAllahu does not remove you from the world. It removes the world from owning your heart. And when that happens, nothing truly has the power to break you anymore. So now, or after everything you have heard, after every layer that unfolded quietly inside you, understand this: HasbiAllahu was never meant to change the world around you first. It was meant to change where your heart stands in the world. When you truly say it, you stop arguing with reality. You stop demanding life explain itself. You stop begging circumstances to be gentle. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because your heart finally becomes anchored. Anchored beyond fear. Anchored beyond people. Anchored beyond outcomes. You realize that peace was never hidden in answers, or timing, or control. It was hidden in where you placed your trust. And maybe that's why this reminder reached you now, not earlier, not later, but at the exact moment when your heart was tired of carrying everything alone. So when you leave this video, one fet rush back into noise. Carry HasbiAllahu with you, into your silence, into your waiting, into your uncertainty. Say it when the mind wants answers. Say it when the heart feels exposed. Say it when you don't know what comes next. Because HasbiAllahu is not the end of effort. It is the end of panic. It is the moment the soul finally rests, in the only place strong enough to hold it. And wherever you are right now, whatever you stare facing, whatever you stir carrying quietly, may this be the moment you stop holding the world on your shoulders and allow yourself to be held instead. HasbiAllahu, and that is enough. O Allah, Mispekam Sanza, we come to you not because we are strong, but because we are tired of carrying what was never meant for our hearts. O Allah, there are worries in our chest we never spoke out loud, fears we learned to hide behind patience, and questions we stopped asking because we were afraid of the answers. Your Allah, we have tried to understand everything, we have tried to plan everything, and we have tried to hold everything together on our own. And tonight, we place it down. HasbiAllahu, you are enough for us. O Allah, for every heart that feels heavy right now, replace anxiety with trust, replace restlessness with calm, replace fear of the future with certainty in you. Ya Rab, where doors feel closed, grant us patience without bitterness. When answers feel delayed, grant us peace without confusion. Where pain remains, grant us meaning instead of despair. O Allah, free our hearts from needing people to complete us, from needing outcomes to validate us, from needing certainty before we move forward. Let our reliance be on you alone, Ya Allah. Teach us to say HasbiAllahu, not only when things go wrong, but when things are unclear, when the path is quiet, and when the heart feels alone. O Allah, if what we are asking for is good for us, bring it closer with ease. And if it is not good for us, remove it gently and replace it with something better than we could ever imagine. Ya Rab, heal what we cannot explain, strengthen what feels weak inside us, and guard our hearts from returning to panic. After this moment of peace, we place our trust in you, not because we understand everything, but because you do. HasbiAllahu, you are enough for us. You have always been enough, and you will always be enough. Coming.